Welcome to this week's lecture. We finished the book, so that's great. Actually, we didn't finish the book, but I just decided that we did. And so we're going to move on and talk about an article that I have linked to there in Moodle. I grew up in this area, and there's a lot of negativity, I guess, to say the least, in terms of trying new ideas or trying to get something to make a positive change in the community. And so I think that's fairly common too with rural communities. If you've ever been to the big city or even been to a place like California, it's like they just have this idea that anything's possible because they're seeing kind of new things built all the time. Whereas in rural communities, we've been kind of doing the same thing for a while, so maybe that's why we kind of get the mindset that things don't tend to change. And so this article, The Building Resilience in Rural Communities, is what I'm asking you to read this week instead of reading a chapter. And so I just kind of want to briefly kind of go over what the article is about, kind of like what I did with the lectures for the other chapters. By far the first page, or second page, I guess, is the most complicated. So if you're you kind of get lost in that second page where it's talking about the introduction, don't worry about it. Skip to the third page if that first page of writing, I guess, throws you off. And so basically what it is it was a research project that was done. They interviewed lots of people in rural communities. Actually, it was one rural community. It was Stanthorpe, and they were looking for what was working, what is successful. How do you get a rural community to make positive changes? Like, what is the secret sauce? What are the elements that need to be involved there? And so they've identified, I believe, 11 resilience concepts are outlined in this toolkit, and then so that they're identifying, a resilience, a quality or a characteristics like a social network and a support, and it kind of explains what that is. It gives some ideas on how you could do it, what this oftentimes looks like. Is there any literature? Literature. It kind of reviews the research. What kind of a research is out there to show that this actually works? So the first one is what I just mentioned, social networks and support. Honestly, I think this is what everybody's looking for. I really believe that when people are looking for a home, they want to go somewhere where people are interconnected, where people know their neighbors and they care about their neighbors and their neighbors care about them. And I think that people who say, well, I want to be left to myself and don't bother me, I think that person has been hurt. And I think that is a reaction to something that happened in the past that's bad. But I still think that if you could gain that person's trust, if the community could gain that person's trust, they'd actually be welcoming people in their lives, and they would be also in someone else's lives. And so rural communities actually have an advantage over urban communities because urban communities are so large that it's so difficult to get to know your neighbor. Because if you live, say, in New York City, there may be 30,000 people within a square mile of you. And so that is really hard to meet 30,000 people, especially since there's a lot of coming and going, people moving in, people moving out. Whereas a small community like Tams, there's less than 1,000 people within a square mile of Tams. And so it's much easier to get to know those people. And so there's some ideas on how you could map out the community. You can hold hold groups and try to figure out how do you foster a sense of community for that. So moving on, a positive outlook. Right? Surprise, surprise. This is positive psychology's claim to fame, that if we look at the world through rose-colored glasses, things tend to go better for us, for our communities. And so how do you create that within a community? Well, one idea is to conduct a get-to-know-you session involving building confidence, doing things that are humorous, talking through difficult situations and offering constructive ways forward in those. It mentions cognitive behavioral therapy, which is sometimes referred to as CBT. CBT is basically just how do you think about something in a way that gives life rather than sucking life out of you. So everything is an opportunity to be either discouraged or to celebrate, right? Someone walks by you that and doesn't say hello, right? You have two choices. You can say, "Oh, that person doesn't like me. Something's wrong with me," right? Or you could say, "You know what? This is an opportunity for me to reconnect and strengthen my connection with that person. Maybe that person's having a bad day, and it's actually an opportunity for me to help them have a better day," right? Both choices are there. You can choose one or the other. So, learning. Very important to keep people challenged, to help them see that the world is way more interesting and exciting than they realize. And so you can develop mentor systems. You can have a group where you're thinking about ways that you could make the future better. Early experiences. Our brains, when we are young, are really growing and changing a lot. And so if we can give children experiences in life, this is going to enhance their lives. And because they're the future of the community benefits. But actually, not just that. I'm a big believer that it's blessed. You're blessed to be a blessing, right? And so sometimes the giver actually has it better than the receiver, meaning that there are some people who feel like they have not much purpose. There's nobody that really needs them. And so if you can connect that person with somebody who needs them, who is maybe a younger child, and that older person can teach them how to sew, how to ride a bike, it's not just the child that benefits from that experience, but also the older person, because they feel like, wow, I actually have something to give. I can make life better for somebody. This is a positive thing, even though I'm saying it in a very dry manner. Apologize for that. Big brothers, big sisters is an example of this. The environment and lifestyle. Studies show when we are out in the world, out in nature, anxiety goes down, depression goes down, and even if you don't have those things, it is certainly good for our moods, and it's good for learning, and our brains change and do positive things when we do that. So there's some ideas on how communities can create some of those experiences. Infrastructure and support services, things that the community can do to provide something that is going to benefit everybody, right? Infrastructure would be roads and bridges and waterways and parks and nursing homes and sidewalks and all kinds of things that are going to benefit not just the individual, not a private thing. But the next one is sense of purpose. When people feel like there is a vision for the future of their community, they're much more likely to be inspired to go ahead and do that. And that's one of the reasons why I think when I was growing up, everyone was kind of thinking that the future was just going to, look like everything kind of falling apart, and everything was going to remain the same or get worse, right? Well, that is the most uninspiring vision of the future. Why would people try if they're thinking, oh, well, it doesn't matter, I'm going to fail anyway, everyone's going to fail, no one's going to do anything, nothing's going to change. Whereas the opposite of that, if you can give people a sense of purpose and saying, no, actually, we could do these things and they actually would make a difference. We could have a DVD swap. I know people don't watch DVDs anymore, but back when they did, you could have a DVD swap, and this would allow you to get some free movies from your neighbor, and your neighbor gets some free movies from you, and rather than everyone having to go out and buy a ladder or cordless drill, you could have a tool library, and rather than people feeling like they can't fix their homes, you could have volunteer groups of people that would fix homes, and volunteer groups of people that would do other things for people in the community. And one day, we work on your home, your things, and then the next week we work on mine, and just sort of this sense of shared purpose. Shared purpose, right? That's now you have a connection between people that is strong. All right, I'm back. The next one here is on diverse and innovative economies. What is the community doing to help small businesses get started? I think a lot of people have ideas and things that they would like to try, but they feel that they don't even know where to start. Who do I talk to? What do I do? Paperwork, is this really expensive? Does one business cooperate with other ones? Are there business coaches and mentors where people who maybe are just starting out could have like somebody who's been involved in business for a lot longer that can kind of make that connection and say, hey, this is what I learned. You could have a class like how to start a small business here in our community. What doors can you open in your community to allow people who have small businesses to get started? The next one is embracing differences. Is there a welcoming committee for when people move into your neighborhood, into your town? Is there a way that you can communicate to people that are a little bit different? Maybe they're not from around here, or something else is different about them compared to the rest of the community. Is there a way that you can reach out to them and say, hey, we want you to be a part of us. We value each other, we value individual differences, and we're not afraid of them, and we actually think that those make us stronger as a group. Beliefs. What are the underlying ideas about the way things should be done? So, for instance, our book, the article mentions, can you take something that you've always done a certain way and change it to make it just a little bit better? Maybe there's a meeting that's always held in a stuffy room with bad lighting. Can you move that outside just because it would change things? And who knows, we might have a different result than we did before. Rites of passage, I think, are sorely missing in our society. What can you do to help initiate people when they've changed and gone from one thing to another? I know everyone kind of thinks of like religious beliefs, but I think it's actually more than just that. Leadership. What can you do to create better leaders in the community? Leadership is really, really important, and yet for most of us, we never get a single class on how to do it well. And most people will lead something in their life, even if it's just their child, but it could be they're a leader at work, they're a supervisor, they're a leader in their religious community, they are a leader when they go play a sport with somebody else. And again, leadership is not something that's necessarily obvious or easy. It's easy to criticize somebody for doing a poor job of leadership, but what is the community doing to make better leaders? Everyone from the mayor all the way down to the supervisor in a local business or something like that. And so encouraging, you could, as a group, you could say, hey, we're going to read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we're going to meet in the coffee shop down the street, or the diner, or the library, and we're going to have a book study about how to be a better leader. And the libraries are full of leaderships, and if the library doesn't have it, the bookstore will. So that's a kind of a quick wrap up of this article. Again, I would ask that you read the article and that you create a summary and response about that.